Your brother's business has to come first. That's what my father said when I told him I had won a scholarship from MIT. I only needed $20,000 yearly to cover my living expenses and study materials, but instead of being proud, he crushed my future. The next day, I decided to leave home, telling myself, if they don't need me, I'll create my worth. But 10 years later, when everything turned upside down, they came looking for me. What do they want? And what will I do? Follow my story to find out. Hello, I'm Thomas, 28 years old. Today is a special day. 10 years since I left my family. I always remember this day, not out of nostalgia, but because it marks the moment I truly understood my place in the family. I still remember that day vividly. A Monday morning, sunlight streaming through the curtains as I stepped outside to collect the mail. The MIT logo was printed on the envelope. I tore it open, my eyes scanning the lines, and when I saw the words, "Congratulations, you have been accepted to MIT with a partial scholarship," my heart nearly leaped out of my chest. I did it. I ran straight into the house, my feet barely touching the ground from excitement. "Dad, Mom, I got into MIT," I shouted as I saw them sitting in the living room. My father watched the news. My mother read the account books. But when they heard my voice, they both turned to look at me. I beamed, holding up the letter. MIT, one of the top universities in the world. I got a partial scholarship. They stared at me. No applause, no congratulatory hugs, no pride, no joy, none of the reactions I had hoped for. My father took the letter and skimmed through it. Then he sighed. MIT is good, but a partial scholarship means there are still a lot of expenses, right? I nodded, still smiling. Yes, but I only need $20,000 a year. MIT is covering tuition for housing, food, and books. I need you to help with the rest. I expected them to understand. I expected them to be happy and say they would support me in pursuing this dream. But instead, my mother shook her head. Jack needs money to expand the company. The family can only invest in one person. Jack? It was always Jack. My throat went dry. What are you saying? My mother sighed as if I had asked something obvious. Jack's business is growing. With more capital, he can double the profits within a year. $20,000 a year for you? That's a big expense and doesn't benefit the family. I felt a tightness in my chest. I'm your son. My voice trembled. I've worked my whole life to prove myself. This is MIT, a life-changing opportunity. And all you care about is Jack's profits. My father folded his newspaper, his sharp gaze locking onto mine. Watch your tone, he snapped. Jack's company is the future of this family. It will keep us stable for generations. Then he looked me straight and said something I will never forget. Your brother's business has to come first. No hesitation, no remorse. So this was how it had always been. I was never truly part of this family. That afternoon, I locked myself in my room. I lay on my bed, staring blankly at the ceiling. But my mind was trapped in old memories. The countless times my parents' favorite Jack flooded back like a slow-motion film. Each scene, each word, each feeling of being left behind. Jack was 8 years older than me, the perfect older brother, the ideal son. He was handsome, confident, and had a natural talent for business. Since childhood, my parents had placed all their hopes on him. Me? I was just the second child, the one no one expected but had to exist. I never hated Jack. I never resented him. But I hated how my parents treated me because of him. Why can't you be more like your brother? That sentence haunted me my entire life. Jack could make mistakes, but my parents always had a reason to defend him. I never got that kind of forgiveness. Once, Jack broke a window while playing ball. My mother just laughed and said, "It's okay. Boys should be energetic like that." But I spilled a glass of water on the dining table another day, and she snapped, "Thomas, why are you always so clumsy?" Jack skipped school for a whole month to intern at a big company. My parents applauded him, saying it was a real-world experience. I skipped class for one day to compete in a programming contest, and my mother only frowned. School is already hard enough. Why waste time on nonsense? Jack once failed an important exam, and my mother gently reassured him, "It's okay. Sweetheart, you'll do better next time." And me? I scored perfect on my math test and ran to show my father. He glanced at it, shrugged, and said, "Good job." But Jack competed at the national level when he was your age. I engraved that moment into my heart. No matter how hard I tried, I would never be Jack. I was never the priority. Jack's birthday, a grand party, balloons, expensive gifts, relatives gathering to celebrate. My birthday, a small cake, a few polite wishes. Some years they even forgot it entirely. They always said Jack and I were both their sons and that they loved us equally. But that love was never divided evenly. Jack was the long-term investment. I was just the backup plan. But instead of giving up, I decided to prove that I didn't have to be Jack to be valuable. I worked harder, studied more, joined extracurricular activities, and won competitions. But Jack's presence overshadowed every achievement. I didn't want to be Jack. I just wanted my parents to see me as me. But that never happened. And today, after my father said, "Your brother's business has to come first," I knew it never would. I decided to leave home. I no longer wanted to live in my brother's shadow. No more comparisons, no more being looked down on or treated as a backup plan. I wanted a life that was indeed mine. But to do that, I needed to make sure I could support myself. I opened my laptop, logged into MIT's financial aid system, and searched for every possible option. After more than 10 minutes of speaking with the financial aid office, I realized I didn't need my parents' money. MIT didn't just offer scholarships. They had support programs for students in need. I could work part-time on campus or with MIT-affiliated organizations. On top of that, I could live in the dorms, which cost significantly less than renting an apartment. That was enough. I could stand on my own. The following day, I gathered all my courage and walked to the living room, where my parents had breakfast. "I'm going to be independent," I said firmly. "I'm going to MIT without your money." My parents looked up at me as if I had just said something absurd. My mother set down her teacup and crossed her arms. "What are you talking about?" I contacted MIT's financial aid office, I continued. "They have financial assistance programs for students in need. I can work part-time. The dorms are affordable. I don't need your money." My father slammed his hand on the table. "Who do you think you are to make this decision on your own?" he roared. I clenched my fists but stood my ground. "This is my life, and I will decide how to live it." The tension in the room was suffocating. I had never seen my parents this angry before. My mother shook her head and let out a cold laugh. "You think living on your own will be easy? You'll come crawling back." "No, I want I said, unwavering. My father stood up, his eyes burning with rage. "If you walk out that door, you are no longer my son." The words cut through me like a sharp blade, but instead of pain, I felt relief. They had never indeed seen me as their son. This was just the final confirmation. I nodded, taking a deep breath. "All right then." Then I turned, walked upstairs, and started packing my bags. I was leaving today. I arrived in Cambridge with $2,000 in my pocket, the small amount I had saved over the years. Everything I owned fit into a single worn-out suitcase and a backpack carrying my laptop. No one saw me off. No one wished me luck. It was just me and the journey ahead. When I set foot on MIT's campus, the school guided me through the dormitory process and part-time job opportunities. MIT's financial aid system was truly efficient. They didn't just provide scholarships. They created opportunities for students like me to sustain themselves. 4 years passed in the blink of an eye. Every day was packed. In the mornings, I attended classes, ensuring I never missed a lecture and writing down every word. I worked at the library in the afternoons, sometimes in the lab. I took on any job that could help me earn extra money. At night, I returned to my dorm and continued studying. I read books, watched online courses, and coded until late. I had no time to think about anything else. But no matter how busy I was, there were still moments of emptiness. My parents, Jack, since the day I left, they had never reached out to me. No messages, no calls, not even a single question about how I was doing, as if I had never existed in that family. In the beginning, I missed them terribly. I stared at the ceiling on my first nights in the dorm, wondering if they ever thought about me. Many times, I picked up my phone and typed a simple message. "Mom, Dad, I'm doing okay." But every time I deleted it, I was afraid that they would think I had failed if I reached out first. Afraid they would mock me. Afraid they would sit together and say, "He'll come back. He can't make it on his own." I couldn't let that happen. So I chose silence. They never contacted me, and I never contacted them. I buried those emotions in work, studying, and the goals I set for myself, because I had made a promise to myself. If they don't need me, I'll show them that I don't need them either. And 4 years later, I walked across that stage with a prestigious degree. But more importantly, I was no longer that desperate kid from the past. Graduating from MIT with top honors, I became a rising star in the tech industry. Major companies sought after me. My inbox overflowed with lucrative offers. Salaries reaching $150,000 yearly, with housing, cars, and stock options. For a fresh graduate, it was a dream come true, but I turned them all down. I didn't want to spend my life building someone else's dream. Instead of taking a stable job, I continued working part-time. I poured every dollar I earned into developing a personal finance management app, a tool designed for working-class people, for those like me before I got to change my life. I believed in it. It could help millions take control of their finances, avoid debt, and prevent financial crises. I bet everything on this project, and 6 months later it collapsed. Not enough users, no investors, no steady income. I lost every penny of my savings. Sitting in my nearly empty apartment, I stared at the stack of unpaid bills on the table. My phone rang endlessly. Calls from my landlord, the bank, and debt collectors. I had lost. I had convinced myself that I would never fail if I worked hard enough. But reality doesn't always work that way. One night, I wandered to the Harvard Bridge. The cold wind cut through my skin. Beneath me, the dark river surged, deep and endless. I looked down, and a part of me wondered, if I disappeared, would anyone care? My parents, Jack, the people who had forgotten me for the past 4 years? No one. But then, I remembered why I started. I remembered the moment I walked out of that house, with nothing but an unshakable will. I had told myself I would create my worth, not for my parents, not for Jack, for me. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. Then I turned my back to the water and walked away. Instead of jumping, I went home, opened my laptop, and started over. After my first failure, I was left with nothing. But this time, I didn't rush. I spent the next 3 years learning from those better than me. I devoured everything about financial management, startups, and technology. I followed successful entrepreneurs, attended tech events, and sought out people who had walked the path I wanted to take. But I also needed stability. To be safer this time, I worked at a small tech company. A $60,000 salary is not high by industry standards, but it is enough to live comfortably without worrying about monthly bills. The job wasn't too stressful, no overtime, and most importantly, it gave me the time to keep chasing my dream. I no longer had to work myself to exhaustion to survive. And then, as if fate had arranged it, I met my mentor, a fintech entrepreneur. He had failed, lost everything, and rebuilt his company into a business worth hundreds of millions. He saw potential in me, and I learned more from him than from any course I had ever taken. I refined my business model and rebuilt my app from scratch. I didn't repeat my old mistakes. This time, I understood the market. I had a strategy. I knew how to raise funds. I learned how to create a product with real value. And this time, it succeeded. My financial app attracted over 1 million users and secured millions in funding. I became a recognized name in the startup world. I was invited to speak at major conferences, featured in articles, and signed deals with top investors. I had accomplished what no one thought I could years ago. But no matter how much success I achieved, my family remained utterly silent. No messages, no calls. I once believed that if I succeeded one day, my parents would finally look at me with pride. But no, I didn't exist in their world. I thought they had forgotten me. But they hadn't. They still remembered me, and they came looking for me. I remember how it felt to see them standing outside my apartment gate. I remember how it felt when they said they missed me. For a moment, I thought I had finally been acknowledged, that this was the moment we would mend our broken family bonds. But no, missing me was just an afterthought. The real reason they came was money. My name was everywhere in the media after my company secured tens of millions in funding. The press hailed me as one of fintech's most successful young entrepreneurs. My company expanded into medical technology a year later, developing an AI platform for early disease detection. This time, I wasn't just a name in the startup world, I was a symbol. And then, they came looking for me. It was a winter day 6 months ago, after nearly a decade of silence. I remember exactly how it felt to see them standing outside my apartment. My mother, my father, and Jack. They stood there, shivering in the cold, looking at me as if I were a stranger they had just recognized in a crowded street. I froze. 1,000 thoughts raced through my mind. They were looking for me? I had imagined this moment so many times. I had thought that one day, when I was successful and wealthy enough, they would finally see my worth. I had dreamed of a day when my parents would be proud of me, when they would admit they were wrong, when they would tell me they missed me. And today they were here. Son, my mother's voice trembled. We've missed you so much. For a moment, a part of me wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe that I had finally been recognized after all these years. I thought this was the moment to heal. But no, missing me was secondary. The real reason they came was money. I invited them inside, even though I had no desire for this reunion deep down. My father glanced around the moment they stepped in, his expression briefly satisfied. Nice place, he nodded approvingly. Jack scanned the apartment, smirking. Living alone in a big place must be pretty lonely. Huh? I didn't respond. My mother smiled, reaching for my hand, her voice softer than I remembered. I'm so proud of you, Thomas. I didn't react. 10 years ago, those words would have brought me to tears, but now they meant nothing. An uncomfortable silence filled the room. I broke it first. What do you want? Their eyes shifted, hesitation flickering across their faces. And then, after a long pause, my mother finally spoke. Jack made a bad investment, she said, trembling. The family business is on the verge of bankruptcy. He needs your help. I let out a quiet laugh. I had expected this, yet somehow it still disappointed me. So, in the end, you only remember me when you need money. I spoke slowly, locking eyes with them. My father frowned. Thomas, don't say it like that. We're family. Helping each other is what family does. I leaned back in my chair, arms crossed, my voice steady. Family, huh? Let me remind you what family did for me 10 years ago. My mother opened her mouth, but I held a hand to stop her. I asked you for $20,000 yearly to attend MIT, not for fun, but to build a future. And you said no. Why was that again? I paused for a moment, then looked directly at my father. All right, because your brother's business has to come first. Silence. Jack looked away. My mother bit her lip. My father's face remained unreadable, and then he scoffed. If I had helped you back then, would you be where you are today? He said, his voice tinged with pride. You should be thanking me. It's because I didn't help you that you became this successful. I froze for a second. Then I laughed. So you're saying I owe my success to you abandoning me? Exactly. He shrugged. If I had given you the money, you'd be another ordinary MIT graduate. But because you had to survive on your own, you became extraordinary. I trained you to be strong. Anger burned in my chest. Incredible. I clapped slowly. So if Jack is struggling now, does that mean you'll let him become strong the same way? Or will you sacrifice me again to save him? My mother rushed to interject. This is different, Thomas. Jack has dedicated his life to our family's business. I let out a bitter laugh. Dedicated his life? He was given everything from the start. You paved the way for him. If the business succeeded, he got all the glory. If it failed, he could turn to me. Jack clenched his fists but said nothing. I stood up, looking at each of them in turn. You're not here because I'm your son. You're here because I have money. No one denied it. So they knew it too. I sighed, shaking my head. I used to think that if I became successful enough, you'd finally be proud of me. But now I see, you're only proud of me when I have something you need. My mother grabbed my hand. Thomas, please help Jack. I pulled my hand away. No, figure it out yourselves. I stepped back, opening the door. Now get out before I call the police. After my firm words, a flicker of shock crossed their faces. Jack frowned, his fists clenched as if he wanted to say something. But in the end, he just bit his lip and stayed silent. My father glared at me as if he couldn't believe what he had just heard. He wasn't used to being refused, especially not by me, the son he once deemed worthless. But now he had no choice. My mother lowered her head, sighed quietly, and gently pulled Jack's arm. Reluctantly, they turned to leave. I stood motionless, watching their figures disappear beyond the door. I knew for sure they wouldn't give up so easily. And just as I expected, 2 days later they showed up again. This time I didn't invite them in. They stood at my door, looking more exhausted and desperate than before. But I no longer cared. Arms crossed, I leaned against the doorframe, my expression calm but cold. What is it this time? I asked, my voice devoid of emotion. My father let out a deep sigh, meeting my gaze. I'm sorry for what I said before. Truly, we're very proud of you. I smirked. Really? Are you proud of me or proud of the money I make? My mother blinked, rushing to speak before I could say anything else, almost as if she was afraid that if I kept talking, She'd lose her chance to convince me. Help Jack, please. We know we were wrong to favor him. But we're family. No matter what, we raised you, we gave you life. Can't you help him just this once? I laughed. A short, sharp, bitter laugh. Oh, so now you finally admit you favor Jack. My father pressed his lips together, but didn't he deny it? I shook my head, scanning their faces. They had never apologized for choosing Jack over me. Not on the day I left home with nothing. Not on the day I was featured in magazines as Young Entrepreneur of the Year. Not on the day I built my company into something bigger than they had ever imagined. But today they admitted it. Not because they regretted it, because they needed me. I didn't give them an answer right away. Instead, I stared at them, letting the silence stretch out, letting them feel every second of it. I need time to think. My mother's face lit up, nodding eagerly. Of course, sweetheart, take your time. Just knowing you'll consider it makes me happy. I didn't respond. I watched as they turned and walked away. The door clicked shut behind them. I stood there, looking down at my hands. They weren't shaking. It was not like the day I held my MIT acceptance letter in front of them and was rejected. Not like the day I walked out of that house alone to face the world. This time I was the one in control. The next day, I decided not to let emotions cloud my judgment. I needed the truth. I called a friend who specialized in finance and asked him to investigate my family's business over the past decade. I wanted to know everything. 2 days later, a thick folder arrived at my door. I opened it and read every line carefully, and as I scanned through the financial reports, I froze. My throat went dry, my fingers gripping the pages so tightly they nearly crumpled. 10 years ago, they sold my grandfather's house. The house he had explicitly told them to keep before he passed away. The house that held all the memories of my childhood. They sold it for $800,000, and every last dollar went into Jack's business expansion. Meanwhile, I had only asked for $20,000 to go to school. $20,000. Not even 3% of what they had made from selling the home my grandfather had worked so hard to preserve. But it didn't stop there. I flipped through the documents until my eyes landed on a bank statement. Within 3 years of getting that money, they had poured it all into Jack's reckless investments. Jack didn't just expand the company. He dabbled in real estate, cryptocurrency, and tech stocks. He burned through $800,000 in just 5 years. All of it gone. The records detailed every significant expense. $250,000 to open 2 new company branches. One of them shut down within a year due to losses. $180,000 invested in a Florida real estate project. Jack, lacking experience, was scammed by a fraudulent brokerage. $100,000 was thrown into cryptocurrency at its peak. A year later, the market crashed, and the money vanished. $70,000 for a brand new sports car. A reward for Jack after a hard year of work. Jack had burned through every cent, and my parents had let him. And when Jack finally lost it all, they came to me. Because I was the backup plan. I let out a dry, hollow laugh. So that was my worth to them. Jack could have everything, no matter how many times he failed. Meanwhile, even with a scholarship from one of the world's top universities, I wasn't worth a fraction of what they had handed him. Yet just yesterday they dared to say, "We raised you. We gave you life." What a joke. I set the folder on the table, leaned back in my chair, and closed my eyes. My parents had sold our family's legacy and discarded my grandfather's wishes. All for Jack. And now, with Jack failing yet again, they turned to me. The following day, I decided to return home. For the first time in 10 years, I stepped through the gate I had once walked out of with nothing. No nostalgia, no sentimentality. Only one thing filled me now, clarity. I entered the living room. My father, mother, and Jack were already seated, waiting. I glanced at them. My mother looked tense. My father sat with his arms crossed. And Jack slouched in his chair, not bothering to hide his irritation. I didn't waste time. How much do you need? They didn't hesitate. $500,000. $500,000. I let out a hollow laugh. 10 years ago, I had asked for $20,000 to go to school, and they refused. And now they dared to demand 25 times that amount without a second thought. I leaned back in my chair, my voice calm. Fine, I agree. All 3 of them froze for a second, caught off guard, but I wasn't finished. I turned to my father, meeting his gaze head on. But I need collateral. I want this house signed over to me. The room fell into an eerie silence. My mother frowned, worry flashing in her eyes. Jack stared at me as if I had just insulted him. And my father, the same man who had once coldly told me to leave this house, now glared at me with fury. "You're joking, right?" I shook my head. "No, this is a loan, not a handout. If you pay me back in full within 5 years, the house will be returned to you. If not, it's mine." Jack slammed his fist on the table. "You're exploiting the family S situation to steal our home?" I met his gaze without blinking. "Not me. You. That's exactly what Mom and Dad did to me 10 years ago." My mother reached for my hand, her voice desperate. "Thomas, you don't have to do this." I pulled my hand away. "Then tell me, why didn't you think that way when I asked for $20,000? My father shot up from his seat, furious. "You're being selfish." "Yes, just like you were with me," I replied without hesitation. Jack was too angry to stay still. "You already have everything, Thomas. Why do you need this house?" I tilted my head, giving him a cold, knowing smile. "And why do you need $500,000? If you're sure you'll get the money back, this shouldn't be a problem. The house is just collateral, isn't it?" Jack didn't answer, because he knew I was right. The room fell into silence again, a suffocating, heavy silence. My father clenched his fists. My mother glanced at Jack, and he furrowed his brows, tension written all over his face. No one dared to break the moment, and so I decided to do it myself with a gamble that could cost me $500,000. But if they genuinely remembered me, I wouldn't regret it. I took a deep breath and spoke slowly. "All right, I'll invest $500,000 in you." Their eyes lit up with relief. My mother teared up. Jack smiled for the first time since I arrived. And my father nodded approvingly as if I had finally done something right. But I wasn't finished. Not so fast. I raised a hand, my voice steady. "There's one more condition." The tension returned. "If you can tell me my exact birthday, I'll transfer the money immediately." My mother blinked rapidly. Jack's frown deepened, and my father tilted his head as if I had just said something absurd. 10 seconds passed. 30. A minute. No one spoke. They were trying to remember. 5 minutes. I crossed my arms and waited. 10 minutes. Not a single word. No one dared to guess. And then, finally, my father spoke. "August 25th, 1997. I laughed. I said nothing else. Instead, I placed the folder I had brought on the table, everything I had uncovered about their finances, every reckless transaction, every blind decision. They had thrown away every dollar for Jack. Then, I stood up, walked away from the table, and headed straight for the door. Before stepping out, I turned back one last time. "Goodbye. From now on, don't ever come looking for me again." And then I left. No one followed me. No one called my name. No one tried to stop me, because they had never indeed remembered me. And this time, I had finally freed myself. After that day, I blocked all contact with them. No more messages. No more calls. They had lost the right to reach me, just as they had abandoned me 10 years ago. But that didn't stop them from trying. They came to my company a few times, only to be turned away by security. Then they showed up at my home. I refused to see them, and when they refused to leave, I called the police. And just like that, they disappeared. 6 months passed. I heard that Jack's company had officially gone bankrupt. No more funding to keep it afloat. No one is willing to invest and bail him out. Jack had to sell his car and personal assets to manage his debts. My parents sold their house to cover some of his significant liabilities. In the end, they were left with nothing. They bought a small house in the suburbs and started doing jobs they had never done before. I didn't care how they lived or whether they struggled, because for the first time in my life, I had indeed let go of the burden of them. I no longer sought their approval. I had freed myself. But the story didn't end there. After lengthy negotiations, I finally bought back my grandfather's house a month ago. They sold the same house for $800,000 to fund Jack's business. But now I had to pay over $2 million to reclaim it. When some relatives heard about it, they came to me. They berated me. "You're the reason this family fell apart. You have money, and you want to even help them? Are you trying to get revenge on your parents?" I looked them straight in the eye. "Where were you when my parents mistreated me?" Silence. I didn't need an answer. I blocked their numbers. People who only speak up when it benefits them have no place in my life. When my colleagues and business partners heard my story, they didn't just sympathize. They were proud to work with me. "You carved your path. No one can take that away from you." I respect you for setting boundaries. Not everyone dares to do that. They didn't pity me. They respected me, and that was what truly mattered. What about you? What do you think about me and my decisions? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel and share this story. Thank you for watching. See you next time.